Hello friends, welcome to Insights I Can Initiative. In this video, we are going to discuss about no confidence motion. You all know that students, today we have witnessed that the opposition parties in Lok Sabha, they introduced no confidence motion against the present government. In this context, we will discuss about no confidence motion. First, we will see the syllabus mapping, then we will go through the video components. First, let us go through the syllabus mapping. In the syllabus mapping point of view, this helps in your UPSC point of view, that is Gender Studies Paper 2 Indian Polity. Whereas, let us go through the components of this video. In this video, we are going to discuss about what is no confidence motion, then what is the historical background of no confidence motion. That means so far, how many times no confidence motion was introduced against the government. Then what is no confidence motion? Then we will discuss about significance of no confidence motion. Then we will go through the what is the procedure regarding the no confidence motion. Apart from that, we will discuss about what are the previous instances where no confidence motion was introduced against various governments. And in the end of this video, we are going to discuss about various motions in the parliament. These are the things we are going to cover in this video. Next, let us discuss the context. Why it is in news? It is in news because now the no confidence motion has been introduced against the Prime Minister Narendra Modi government in Lok Sabha. Who introduced this no confidence motion? This no confidence motion introduced by the Congress Lok Sabha deputy leader, and he is from Northeast, and that MP name is Gaurav Gogoi. And so far in the Indian parliamentary system, so far around 28 times, no confidence motion have been introduced. Out of these 28 times, only once during the time of Morarji Desai, the no confidence motion was able to dislodge the government. That means government resigned due to no confidence motion. Okay, of course, the VP Singh and HD Deve Gowda and Vajpayee, they resigned, but not due to no confidence motion, but due to the vote of confidence. Vote of confidence is different from the no confidence motion. Okay, so let me explain the concepts to you. First, we are discussing about no confidence motion. No confidence motion, students. Okay, this is the central idea of today's video, no confidence motion. First, before you understand this, you have to know that, students, governments are two types. Governments are two types. One is presidential form of government, presidential form of government, presidential form of government, and the second one is the parliamentary form of government, parliamentary form of government, parliamentary form of government. These are the two types of governments. And you know that India follow the parliamentary form of government. And what is the main feature of the parliamentary form of government? The main feature is in parliamentary form of government, according to Article 75, Clause 3. According to this article, in the parliamentary form of government, Council of Ministers are always responsible to the House of People. Council of Ministers are always responsible to the House of People. House of People also known as Lok Sabha. You know that, students. Okay? They are responsible. Responsible means in which way? In the way that the Lok Sabha is able to remove the Council of Ministers. In case if Lok Sabha is not having the confidence in the government, Lok Sabha is able to remove the Council of Ministers. The motion we use to remove the government, that is known as no confidence motion. Through no confidence motion, you can remove the Council of Ministers. And this no confidence motion can be introduced only in which house? It can be used only in the Lok Sabha. That is what you have to understand. There are certain other motions which can be introduced in only Lok Sabha. These are the motions which can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. One is censure motion. Second one is no confidence motion. And the third one is the cut motion. Okay, the cut motion. And the fourth one is adjournment motion. This adjournment motion is not there in Rajya Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, it is not there. In Rajya Sabha, it is known as Rule 267. Few days back, I explained to you. These are the motions which are exclusively confined to only Lok Sabha. Okay. Of course, the voting on the motion of thanks is also in Lok Sabha only. Voting on motion of thanks. Voting on motion of thanks. Voting on motion of thanks. It is also only in Lok Sabha. These are exclusively belong to Lok Sabha because Lok Sabha represents the mandate of the people. In democracy, the house which represents the mandate of the people is always important compared to the other house. And what is the procedure required for no confidence motion? Previously, to introduce a no confidence motion, at least 30 MPs, Lok Sabha MPs, they have to sign on that. Now that number is 50. That means what is the minimum strength required to pass the no confidence motion is at least 50 MPs they have to sign. 50 MPs they have to sign. This you have to understand, students. Here I'll ask you one question like this. Okay. In the same way, to remove the Supreme Court judge, how many MP signature you require in Lok Sabha? And if you want to introduce the same in Rajya Sabha, how many MP signature you required? To remove the Supreme Court judge, if you want to remove in Lok Sabha, if you want to introduce the motion in Lok Sabha, how many MP signature you require? Whereas in Rajya Sabha, in case, how many MP signature you require? Okay, if you know, try to put your answer in comments. Minimum strength is 50 MPs. Once 50 MPs signed on this motion, then presiding officer will decide the date and time on about regarding the no confidence motion. Actually, what is the purpose of the no confidence motion? Here you have to understand. Generally, no confidence motion will be used. Okay, no confidence motion will be used in two ways. No confidence motion. One is to dislodge the government. To dislodge the government. That means to remove the government. In the present scenario, it is not possible because the present NDA government, it is having the absolute majority on its own. Along with its allies, it is having more than 350 seats. So, now the opposition parties, which are INDIA, they cannot dislodge the government. So, this purpose will not fulfill. The other one is regarding to make government accountable, and to get government response on a particular issue. Government response on particular issue. The present no confidence motion is related to this particular category. Now the opposition parties, they are expecting a response from government on which issue? On the issue of Manipur violence. Okay, Manipur violence. Regarding the Manipur violence also, we done the video. I'll include that in the cards. You can read that. You can go through that. I will clear about this. This is about the dual purpose of the no confidence motion. This is the first purpose and the second purpose. The present one is related to the second purpose. This is the crux of this video. Now we will go through the notes. Already you know that why it is in news and who are introducing, and so far 28 no confidence motions were introduced. Why such a move? It is to get the response from government on the Manipur violence. Historical. Actually, this no confidence motion, nowhere mentioned in the constitution. It was mentioned only in the Lok Sabha rules. That is in 1952. It was introduced. And the first time no confidence motion moved against the Jawaharlal Nehru government in 1963. It was introduced by J.B. Kripalani, and this was defeated by the Jawaharlal Nehru government. And this was in the aftermath of Indo-China War. You know the students, Indo-China War was happened in 1962. After that, this no confidence motion was introduced against the Jawaharlal Nehru government. And what is the no confidence motion? It is not having confidence in the Council of Ministers. And once the Council of Ministers lost the confidence, obviously Council of Ministers have to resign, because Council of Ministers are collectively responsible to the government, that is what we discussed in the Article 75 Clause 3. Here you have to understand that to introduce a no confidence motion, we don't need to give specific reason. Whereas to introduce the censure motion, for that you have to give the reason. It cannot be introduced without reason. Next, here important thing we have to know, that is this no confidence motion, like I said earlier, it is not mentioned in the constitution and it is mentioned in the Lok Sabha rules under rule 198. It can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. Already I told you there are certain motions which can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. What is the importance of the no confidence motion? It will test the majority of the government. And if government unable to defeat this no confidence motion, then it has to resign. Sometimes to get the reply from government on important issues also, no confidence motion will be introduced by the opposition parties. And the procedure I explained, minimum 50 members need to sign. Then speaker will discuss with the floor leaders of the various houses, ruling party and opposition party, and he will fix one particular date. Next, how the voting will be done? Voting can be done in various ways. It may be the voice vote, that means members will vote orally. Whereas a division vote, members will vote either through the electronic method, through electronic gadget, I mean to say, or it is through slips. Whereas a ballot vote, it is through ballot box. Usually it is the secret voting. Generally ballot type of voting you will observe in the local body elections also, local government elections. In case if there is a tie, you know the students, speaker will do the casting vote. Presiding officer can exercise the casting vote. Previous times, Indira Gandhi was the prime minister who faced highest number of no confidence motions, 15 times. Out of these 15 times, 4 times it was introduced by the CPIM leader Jyoti Basu. CPIM, Communist Party of India, Marxist. Okay, it separated from the CPI, Communist Party of India. Recently, Communist Party of India lost the national party status, whereas Communist Party of India, Marxist, CPIM, still it is a national party. Tell me students, how many national parties are there at the moment in India? Okay, so far the no confidence motion was able to dislodge, able to remove the Morarji Desai government. Except that no confidence motion was never succeeded. There are 3 times vote of confidence. Always remember, confidence vote or vote of confidence always come from the ruling party. When the ruling party is supposed to prove their majority after they form the government, then there is a vote of confidence. Whereas no confidence motion come from the opposition party. In 1989, I.K. Gujral, 1997, H.D. Deve Gowda, 1999, A.B. Vajpayee, they were resigned because they were unable to win in the vote of confidence. That means they are unable to show their majority in the house because their allies, their friendly parties, they did not support at various times. Okay. Next, recently, I mean during the Manmohan Singh time, at that time, sorry, during the Vajpayee time, the government, during that government, is Congress government, after the Vajpayee government, after the nuclear test, in 2008, the Congress government, they faced no confidence motion, especially related to nuclear deal with the US. That is, you know that India-US civil nuclear deal, it was signed in 2005, but it was implemented in 2008. On that, the UPA government faced the no confidence motion, but the government able to defeat that. And in 2018, the present Narendra Modi government, they faced no confidence motion in 2018. That was the last time. Now they are facing the no confidence motion. Next, what are the various other types of motions? In last video, like when I was explaining about the Rajya Sabha, at that time I told you, in Rajya Sabha there is no adjournment motion. In Rajya Sabha you have only rule number 263 and rule number 170, rule number 267 and 176. 176 is about the anything unimportant issues and the discussion will be 2.5 hours. Whereas rule number 267 related to postponing the entire business of the house. That was Rajya Sabha. Equivalent to rule number 267 in Rajya Sabha, no confidence motion in the Lok Sabha. The no confidence motion in Lok Sabha, it dealt by rule 56. What is the importance? The entire the business of the house will be postponed and whatever the matter proposing by the opposition parties, that will be discussed. Then calling attention motion. Calling attention motion can be introduced either in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. If members want to get attention of the minister on any particular important public emergent matter, then they introduce the calling attention motion. Here there will be no voting. Next, short duration discussion. In Rajya Sabha, rule number 176 deals with the short duration discussion, whereas in Lok Sabha, rule number 193. Generally, short duration discussion will be held on matters of urgent public importance. And this also, there will be no voting and the discussion will be continued for 2.5 hours only. Next, cut motions. Generally, cut motions will be introduced during the budget time. Cut motions can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. Okay? Cut motions can be only introduced in Lok Sabha. Censure motion. It is to criticize the minister, and when you are introducing the censure motion, you have to give the reason, and it can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. Motion of thanks. You know that, students, President will address both the houses together in 2 instances. One is when the newly government formed, when the house is newly formed, at that time President will address the 2 houses, as well as the first session in calendar year. Okay, every year, first session of the calendar year, at that time also President will address both the houses together jointly. Once President address is done, in return the house will discuss whatever the contents present in the President address, and house will pass that motion that is known as motion of thanks. If motion of thanks is not passed also, government has to resign. Here, censure motion, no confidence motion. Censure motion, reason has to be mentioned. Reason is not required for no confidence motion. And censure motion, it can be against single minister or group of ministers. Whereas no confidence motion, it can be introduced only against the entire council of ministers. If the censure motion is passed, government no need to resign. Whereas if no confidence motion is passed, then government will resign. That is the basic difference between the censure motion and no confidence motion. Then, what is the conclusion? The conclusion is, this no confidence motion is a crucial step to enhance the parliamentary form of democracy, and the members who support the no confidence motion, they are representing the lack of faith on the leadership. And this no confidence motion, and it should not be misused, and the opposition has occasionally defeated the ruling party like Morarji Desai. And no confidence motion can also used to get the response from the government on important issues. Last video question with reference to ED. With reference to ED, consider the following statements. Out of these 3 statements, which of the following are right? Only A, one only. The first statement is right. The second statement, ED is not statutory body, and ED, they cannot register a case on suo motu. So both statements are wrong. Today's video. So today's video question, let's see. Which of the following statements are correct about the difference between the censure motion and no confidence motion? Read these 2 statements carefully and put your answer in the comments. Okay, and mains question. Analyze the role and responsibilities of Speaker of Lok Sabha in ensuring the effective functioning of the House. So what is the role of the Speaker in the effectiveness of the House? What measures can be taken to strengthen the impartiality and autonomy of the Speaker? So what kind of reforms we can bring into the Speaker office? That is this question's main intention. This is today's mains question. As we are reaching to the end of this video, just we will do the quick revision. In this video, we discussed about what is no confidence motion, why it can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha, and what are the different types of motions can be exclusively introduced in Lok Sabha. And we discussed about the procedure required for the no confidence motion, and what are the various other types of motions, such as adjournment motion, or special discussion motion, or censure motion. And finally, we discussed about the difference between the censure motion and no confidence motion. And we also discussed about various objectives of the no confidence motion. This is the detailed discussion regarding the no confidence motion.